it? You drove it by it?
I drove, yeah. I didn't realize there was more than this.
Are they small?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what.
You guys ready?
I thought they were done developing.
What's that?
You guys ready?
Yeah. We got a quorum, I guess. 1, 2, 3, yep.
All right, the time is 7 p.m. for November 21st, 2022. Welcome to this meeting of the Wooddale Community Development Commission. My name is Jamie Ochoa. I am the chairman. And with that, well, can we proceed with the roll call, Ms. Marilyn?
Yes. Mr. Woods.
Here.
Mr. Bibowitz.
Here.
Mr. Peterson.
Here.
Ms. Rudnicki.
Here.
Mr. Parenti.
Here.
And Chairman Mitchell.
Here. Okay, with that, the CDC has a quorum present. We'll move on. First we'll need a motion to approve the minutes from October 17th, 2022.
I'll make that motion.
Can we get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, after there being a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All those opposed signify by stating no. All right, the motion carries. The minutes are approved. Moving on to the public hearing part of this tonight's meeting. Ms. Dixon, as chairman, I request that you facilitate the public hearing portion.
Certainly. As preparatory remarks for our public hearings, all testimony this evening will be given under oath. At the hearing, there will be an opportunity for the public to provide testimony and comment. Following the public hearing, the CDC's deliberations will be open to the public in the sense that everyone here can listen and watch the discussions. The public, however, may not speak during those deliberations. We ask that the applicants tonight give specific evidence to demonstrate that the proposals before us this evening meet the standards of approval for the request. The burden is on the applicant in both cases to prove the case. Additionally, city staff will provide a general description of the proposal followed by the city staff analysis. With respect to any other members of the public who wish to speak, you may give an opinion or present specific evidence as to why you believe that the applicant meets or fails to meet the standards for the request. Finally, we strictly adhere to the schedule prepared for tonight's meeting. However, those wishing to submit evidence and testimony will be afforded sufficient opportunity in which to do so. Whether you're a member of the public wishing to make a statement for the record or a witness testifying on behalf of an applicant, you will be placed under oath and then begin by stating your name and address once you approach the podium. To allow as many people the opportunity to be heard, we request that all remarks be limited to 5 minutes, other than the applicant, who will take as much time as the applicant needs to make the presentation. I will now call tonight's first matter for public hearing. It is CDC 2022-07. This case involves a request for a zoning map amendment, which is a rezoning, and variation of lot standards as to 3 properties currently in unincorporated DuPage County. The properties are located on Pine Lane, which will be known as 154 and 150 Pine Lane on annexation, and Arbor Lane, which will be known as 470 Arbor Lane upon annexation. The properties are currently classified R4, single family, according to the DuPage County unincorporated zoning. Upon annexation, the properties would be zoned R1, estate residential, pursuant to law. The request is to rezone the properties upon annexation from R1, estate residential, to R3, single family residential in the city of Wooddale, and a variation is requested for lot width and lot size for the 2 lots on Pine Lane. Elmhurst Builders and Developers and Nicole Judas are the applicants. So we will begin the public hearing. Staff, would you please indicate when notice of the hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication from the newspaper? And I believe Marilyn will place you under oath.
Would you raise your right hand? And Ms. Springer also, both of you, would you please state your name and address?
Gosha Pocheja, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Stacy Springer, 404 North Wooddale Road, Wooddale, Illinois.
Do each of you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the notice was published in Daily Herald on November 4th. We do have a copy of the certificate of publication on file.
Very good, thank you. And I heard you say earlier the applicant is present. Is the applicant ready to make its presentation? Okay, please approach the podium.
And would you raise your right hand and state your name and address, please?
Nicole Judas, 459 East Potter Street in Wooddale.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Will your remarks be pertinent to all three of the lots that are subject to annexation tonight?
Well, we only need the variance for the lot width on the one lot, or the two lots on Pine Lane, the one on Arbor.
Okay,
We
but
do not.
you're representing the applicant for all three lots tonight?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead. Would you like to make your presentation?
We are just like to request to rezone the two lots on Pine Lane from R1 zoning district to the current, which is R3, in order to make the lots conforming to the surrounding zoning district. Then Elmhurst Builders would like to build two spec houses on the lots to sell. And then the other lot on Arbor Lane is going to be for me. I'm gonna build a house for my family.
And can you address, do you have your application handy so that you could address the various standards for a variation? Or are you going to adopt the statements that were made in your written application?
Yes, I'll adopt the statements that were in my written application.
Okay. And I believe all members of the Community Development Commission got those standards. Staff, would you, Ms. Patricia, would you like to run through those standards for the applicants so that the members of the audience here will know what the standards are?
Sure. And I apologize. Don't think I have them in my presentation. So there are a total of 8 standards. Standard number 1, I know what I look for the staff responses. So in the memo, what you will see are the responses that were put together as part of the staff memo, so these are put together by staff. We do have standards that were submitted by the applicant that are included in the attachments. So in terms of these standards, we do find that the request meet the standards of approval for all of these. Typically, we don't go through all of these. If you have any particular questions, I'll be happy to address any of them. But essentially, they do talk about physical condition of the lot. They talk about the hardship and when it was created, whether it was created by the applicant, so on. They talked about code compliance and compliance with the comprehensive plan, and also making sure about looking at the character of the area and making sure that what's being proposed is fits the character of the area.
And as to each of the applicants' recitation of the facts, meeting those standards, staff did find that the applicant has met all of the requirements to meet those standards.
Yes.
Does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for the applicant? Okay.
Any more to the presentation?
No.
Okay. Are there any questions for staff on the application?
Is it required that all these properties be annexed in to the village,
So
requiring water, sewer?
that is correct, yes. All of these properties will be required to connect to city water and sewer.
And are there any other, excuse me, that's okay, thank you, sorry.
Any other questions, staff?
I know we don't know the house yet, but looking at the 4 variances we're gonna give in, we might have a real hard time with lot coverage on this. Do we have any idea what kind of house they're looking to build?
So at this point, we do not. I will let you know that the actual size of the lots, these are existing lots that were in existence at least since 1975, as I was able to discover. They're very similar to a lot of the streets that are already in that neighborhood, maybe not directly facing the same subdivision, but kind of behind it. 50-foot wide lot is almost a standard in that area. So it is something that could be achievable and also will be able to meet lot coverage. We do have 2 new single-family homes that are being built or actually finished on Edgewood that have very similar lot size, and they're 50-foot wide, and they were able to meet the 40% lot coverage.
They were?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
We actually have one of the houses already drawn up, and it does meet it's 2,700 square feet, and it does meet the requirements, the 40%.
Any other questions from the commission? Is there any member of the general public in attendance this evening who wishes to make a comment or has any questions relative to this application? Oh, please, approach the podium.
Actually, can I just be loud?
Well, I think because we tape these, we have to have you speaking through the microphone. And when you approach the podium, if you could just state your name and address for the record.
Would you raise your right hand, please? State your name and address.
Sandra Logalba, 165 North Spruce in Wooddale.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
I actually just have a question because I live really close to this area. And I just wanted to make sure that, or I guess find out that at what point the road that sort of dead ends here will connect to the lower road, because there's a lot of traffic that comes through this area. And that would help facilitate some of that traffic and the dead end roads in that area. And then when they just built 436 and, well, they just built on those 2 vacant spaces and they didn't build a road. And also with respect to the 011, there's also a piece of missing sidewalk, and I don't want to assume that that will be built, but that is something that of course is a concern for me because I like to walk around and sidewalks are a problem here. So those are my points and questions. Thank you.
Do you have any comment you can provide?
Yes, so maybe I'll
Question.
kind of start from the back. So anytime there is a new single-family home being developed, our code actually requires them to install public sidewalks. So definitely there will be a connection in the existing sidewalk on Arbor. In terms of the development of the other 2 lots on Pine, our code specifically requires that in order to build a building, to issue a building permit, the road has to have access to public utilities and actually a public street. So one of those lots, actually the street extends to the full extent. That's a buildable lot. The other one, we may have to look closer in terms of where the street ends and whether it's going to be feasible to have access. But the extension of Pine is something that the city has been really talking about. Unfortunately, it is not in the immediate plans for actually to be able to construct the street, but we have been in contact with the actually FBG Builders, the developer, who potentially may be building this street and working with the city. So this is something that's being contemplated, but it's been contemplated for a while. So there is no immediate plan to construct this street, but currently this is a city right-of-way. So eventually that street, it was meant to be there, and eventually it will be constructed.
So go shows for the sidewalk, that is the developer that's required to build it?
That is correct. So it'll be whoever develops that particular parcel, they're required to construct the public sidewalk the entire width of the lot.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, Mr. Peterson?
Yes, are there any recapture agreements?
There is a recapture agreement, but it's actually FBG Builders, who is the owner of these parcel, is the owner of the recapture agreement. So they can just do a release in
Okay.
their own name.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Is there any other question or comment from the public? As the applicant, do you have any closing comment that you would like to make?
No.
Okay, very good. Having no additional testimony, is there a motion to close the public hearing for case number CDC 2022-07?
I'll make that motion.
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki,
Yes.
Mr. Parenti,
Yes.
Mr. Babeles,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson.
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
and Chairman Ochoa.
Yes.
The CDC can now proceed into the deliberations as to this request. And before you is not necessarily the rezoning, because that will be taken care of at the city council, but it is relative to the variation that is requested. Does anyone have a comment relative to the variations that are requested?
Attorney Dixon, the rezoning is up for consideration this evening because
Oh, I'm so
upon,
sorry. That
upon
is- I'm-
annexation, it'll be the most
You're right,
restrictive
I'm sorry, it's a
classification.
map amendment, it has to go through this board for rezoning from R3 DuPage County to R1. My apologies, I skipped ahead. So does anyone have any questions relative to the rezoning? Okay, how about on the variation? If there is no discussion, then it would be appropriate at this time to have a motion. The suggested motion appears in the staff memo at page 7, and that motion is as follows. I will read it and then ask someone to adopt it as their motion. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed map amendment, which is a rezoning, and the variation request is consistent with the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, and therefore, I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the findings of fact included within the staff memo dated November 21, 2022, as the findings of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of the map amendment and the zoning variations for lots -017 and -018 on Pine Lane and lot -011 on Arbor Lane upon annexation of the property. Is there someone on the panel who would like to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Who seconded it? I'm sorry. Thank you. And a roll call. Mr. Beverly?
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
Mr. Parenti?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Chairman Ochella?
Yes.
That motion passes this evening and it will proceed to the City Council. Okay, thank you. I'll now call tonight's second matter to public hearing. It is CDC 2022-09. This case involves a request for an amendment to Table 4-5, Permitted Use Table in Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code, the Unified Development Ordinance, to add food preparation as a permitted use in the C2A Southeast Irving Park Corridor Commercial District. Diego Diastis of Direct Food Service is the applicant. Staff, again, could you please indicate when notice of the hearing was published and whether you have the certificate of publication from the newspaper?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ms. Springer and Ms. Ocha. Ms. Ocha.
I do.
Thank you.
Yes, we do have publication, the certificate of publication is on file, and the notice was published on November 4th, 2022 at Daily Herald.
Okay, very good. And I believe the applicant is present. Sir, ma'am, whoever's representing the applicant, if you could please approach the podium and be placed under oath.
Good evening, folks.
Okay,
My
can
name-
you state your name and address, raise your right hand, please?
Yes, ma'am. Diego Diastis. I live 123 North Central in Wooddale, Illinois.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Would you like to present your application for the panel this evening?
The building right now is 390 East Irving Park. We all know what that building is all about these days. It's been vacant for about 5-6 years now, and we purchased it for the purpose of doing food preparation. We've been in that kind of business for the last 30 years. We have a plant in Addison, one in Franklin Park, and one in Italy. But business is good, demanding, so we're expanding a little bit and keep our business in town here. So I want to remodel the 25,000 square feet to do a nice looking building like I did just down the street, the Oxy Deli, which I also own. The other 4 unit I also own, which we're trying to remodel that as well. And my goal is to change from C2A from C2. George, am I right? No?
It's to add food preparation to the C2A zoning district as a permitted use.
And that, for the panel, that would be a text amendment that applies throughout that district. It would not just simply serve this gentleman's property, but it would assist the gentleman in the use of his property.
Right. So that might be what I'm asking for variance to just that food preparation plant.
Does any member of the Community Development Commission have any questions for the applicant?
Yes. Can you tell us exactly what the food preparation is going to be?
Of course. If you travel on Amtrak, for example, on the airplane, like United United, American Adult, whatever, you may have a meal, especially if you go overseas. A lot of people when I ask that question, I say, yeah, serve food. They go, where does the food at? They never get food on the airplane. When you go to travel overseas, they serve you. On Amtrak, they serve you. So we make fresh sandwiches for Amtrak daily, delivered daily to the downtown commissary. In addition to that, we make a FDA-approved meals, which is a vegetarian meals, which consists of just pasta, some sauce, and some types of vegetables. It's prepared, packed, sealed, and frozen. Then delivered immediately to the storage places, which is McCook, Illinois. Their business is growing. I want to keep it in town. I don't want to grow in Addison or any other suburb. And there was a nice building right near our home. I live, just nearby the plant. I work, the office is the building behind that. So we want to grow in the building here. We want to make that plant clean and have a food service plant over there where we're going to employ at least maybe about 15 people to 20 people max.
Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
I have one more.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have any idea what kind of truck traffic we'll get out of this?
Right now we have a truck, about 6-pallet truck.
If that's it, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, normally the biggest truck would be, maybe once in a while, would be maybe a 12-pallet truck.
Nope, not worried about it.
Yes, sir?
I know you're a successful businessman, so I assume you've done some research on this. Do you think there's going to be a pretty high demand for what you're doing, maybe through the airport and things like that?
Yes. We are in business, this kind of business here, believe it or not. Asti Deli's been there for 29 years. 39 years. Jack, you help me out here. About 40 years almost. And in the airline business, 36 years. You guys remember Michael Lewis? We used to be at Wooddale years ago. Mattel, they're the big distributors for the airline. They moved to McCook. We work together. We make meals for them and they distribute to the airlines. We see an increase in this business here because, well, they gotta feed you. And international flights are still packed these days and they do expect the demand in flying the next couple of years. Again, we have 36 years experience in this business here, so we do expect to stay in business. Transportation is not going anywhere. If you could fly from here to Florida in 2 hours, or here to Italy or Europe, whatever, Germany in 9 hours, they gotta feed you. When there's a plane that gets you from here to England in 2 hours, I have a problem. Not gonna happen, not in our lifetime.
Anyone else? Staff, do you have any remarks? You might want to address the definition of food preparation for the panel.
Thank you. Yes, so that's actually the next slide. So for a text amendment, there aren't any specific standards or findings of fact that need to be adopted. However, we do look for compliance with the Unified Development Ordinance and we look for compliance with the comprehensive plan. So in terms of the UDO, I did want to point out that food preparation is currently permitted in the C2, C3, and I1 zoning district. So actually going back to the zoning map, if you look, the area to the north, we have C2 and we have C3. So really this zoning district C2A is kind of sandwiched in between the other zoning districts that currently allow that use. In addition, we wanted to point out that limited manufacturing, which is a lot more intensive, use is permitted in the C2A. That's why we are supporting the text amendment. In terms of the food preparation, I have a definition on the screen. It is essentially catering establishment where food is prepared on the premises for consumption elsewhere. Really the only text amendment will be to add the food preparation to the C2A zoning as a P that's listed on the screen here. This will be in the permitted use table. In terms of comprehensive plan, the entire zoning district is designated as retail commercial, so really this use will be supporting the commercial operation. We also find that by allowing this use, there will be an existing vacant building that's been vacant for quite some time will be utilized again, and hopefully that will enable some improvements, visual improvements, because then there's going to be commercial activities, the building's going to be cleaned up, and we feel that's going to be a benefit for the district.
question of staff relative to?
How about comments?
Why don't we, if you wouldn't mind, well, you can make a comment now.
Yeah, I would just like to say, you know, I've been several times to your deli. It's excellent food, and I think what you're going to do is good. I support what you're doing. I also think that those of us that were at they're at that zoning thing for a couple of times, remember how that thing was going around and around, and I remember Attorney Subak particularly talked about, you know, different uses, even though it was set up for one thing. And I think this is a great example of how we're taking something that makes sense, and I think I'm going to vote in favor of it, to make this thing work, and how those UDO codes are going to be working. And I think it's great.
Is there any member of the general public in attendance who would like to make any comment on this proposed text amendment? Are there any other questions of the CDC, of the applicant, or of staff? Okay, having no additional, did you have any closing argument you wanted to make, sir?
Just a quick comment on the food preparation facility, so that you guys know. You have to follow a program called HACCP program. Those might know, you guys might know, some don't know about their program. It's all about cleanliness. Pest control is number one on the list. Floor drainage, cleanliness, floor, ceiling, light bulbs. People have to be geared up daily, screened. So it's going to be not just one of those warehouses where everybody comes in and just does what they want. It's going to be one of the nicest, cleanest plants in Wooddale area here. I have no choice but to follow those directions. So my intention is not to make the outside look nice, like I'm doing the other building, but the inside as well. That's my goal.
Well, thank you, sir. There being no additional testimony, is there a motion to close the public hearing for case number CDC 2022-09?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Beverly?
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
Mr. Parenti?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Chairman Ochoa?
Yes.
Now is the opportunity for the panel to discuss this proposed text amendment. Is there any comment on the text amendment?
I'll make the first comment, I guess. I'm sure all of us have probably been at Ostie's at one time or another for a sandwich. Always been extra clean, extra nice people. I don't see any problem with this.
Agree.
I agree. Be good for the community.
Okay. Anyone else? There being no further discussion, it's appropriate at this time for the CDC to make a motion, and the suggested motion to make is provided in the staff memo, which is as follows. Based on the submitted petition and the testimony presented, the proposed text amendment to the Unified Development Ordinance, Chapter 17 of the Municipal Code, is consistent with the comprehensive plan and is in keeping with the purpose and intent of the UDO, and therefore, I move that the Community Development Commission adopt the finding of fact included within the staff memo dated November 21, 2022, as the finding of the Community Development Commission, and recommend to the City Council approval of the text amendment to the UDO, Chapter 17, Table 4-5, to add food preparation as a permitted use in the C2A Southeast Irving Park Corridor Commercial District, as proposed in case number CDC-2022-9. Would there be someone who'd make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Beverly?
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki?
Yes.
Mr. Parenti?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Woods?
Yes.
Chairman Ochoa?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, that concludes tonight's hearing matters. I would ask at this time if staff has any liaison report?
The only thing is, I know we sent out an email regarding December meeting. We still haven't confirmed if we have a complete application, but stay tuned. Probably the next week or so, we'll let you know if we're going to have a December CDC meeting.
Okay. And I think at this time, Mr. Bebowitz, you had asked for an opportunity to make a remark?
Yes. I want to just, I guess I'm going to call this constructive criticism, if it's even criticism. My purpose, is to make Wooddale better, to make this commission better. And what I'm going to ask is a couple questions and go over a couple points. But the first thing I'd like to do is direct this either to Stacy or to Gosha. Who is the staff? Who is it made up of? When you say staff recommends, who is involved with that?
That would be myself and senior planner, Gosha Pochea.
Just the two of you?
And sometimes there's involvement or advice from the city attorney and direction from the city manager. Sometimes the city manager gets input from members of the city council. So it's really a conversation at the staff level. But it's really just from the staff perspective, it's the department with direction from the city manager.
Why wouldn't it always be city manager and/or city attorney? It would make sense to me that, if we're going to take your recommendation, and we trust, I trust, can't say we, me. I trust what you do, but I think I always tell people, I've practiced this all my life, don't go out there on your own, get legal counsel. I've always done this, and it's kept my ass out of trouble so far. But why wouldn't you have the city attorney look over these things briefly, just to make sure everything is, because when you bring it to us, I rely a lot on your recommendation.
If I could just answer that really quickly for staff. I think the city of Wooddale has to be very proud of the staff and the professionalism that they bring to all of the applications. They're your front line. They know your code. They know the UDO. They're familiar with the workings of the city and all of the properties. They have the professional expertise to evaluate every application that comes before the city council. They send the packet to us as your corporation council, and if we see an issue, then we call staff. But typically, legal counsel advice isn't called for or necessary on most of the applications that'll come before you. On some of them, some of the larger developments, only because of the interplay of some of the requests that are being made, our advice will be sought. But you can rest assured, if there is a question from staff, they will ask the question before it comes to you.
I mean, I have faith in the staff, but as I said before, there's nothing wrong with having a set of legal eyes looking at something, and I support that position. As I mentioned, I want to basically kind of call this constructive criticism, and I want to reference 3 cases. The zoning UDO that we did, the Ratcliffe, which we could never forget, and the Lindmark Group, which was last month's, the building up down the street here. All 3 of these, the CDC voted opposite of the city council. Now, should we be in lockstep with them? No. But I think we should be in some type of step with the staff, and we were actually voted against what the staff had recommended. And that bothered me. And it bothered me first time with the UDO, okay. Second time, the Ratcliffe. Third time, a month ago, everybody, and I voted against it too. Everybody voted against it. But yet all 3 of these were either voted for or against, but opposite of what the CDC did. So I kind of want to think this thing through. And as I said before, my purpose is to make this group better and the city of Wooddale better. We're volunteers, so we do this because we want to, not because we're getting paid or anything else. We all know that. So why did it go the opposite? Well, I have a few things that I wrote down, and I would also say that if anyone here wants to add a comment, by all means, please do so when I go over these. The first thing is the packets. Back when we did the zoning, the UDO, this is the packet that we had. Some people, I know, got this 10 minutes before the meeting. I picked mine up on Friday, because that's when it was available. If you think that I'm going to sit and read through all this on the weekend, you're mistaken. And I don't know if anybody else here, if you do, great, but I'm not going to do it. And my purpose is, to make things right. We could have saved a lot of ink and paper by not even doing this. I know you wanted to put it out there, and I respect that. You have something for us, but is there any way we can get these packets earlier than a Friday? I picked up today's last Friday. I actually stopped in Wednesday just by chance if it was ready, because I happened to be in the building and it was not. And I know you're up against all kinds of, you don't get this information. I understand all of that, believe me. But is there any way we can get some of this stuff earlier? Because if you don't pick it up Friday, you're closed Saturday, and it's Monday. An answer. And I know certain times you can't. Here's what I would suggest you do. If it's that vital, maybe you cancel the meeting and move it a week or two later. Now, I don't know what the feeling here would be, but, I like to come in here prepared, at least to know what was going on today. That's why I came in. That's why I always come in on Friday. I'm retired. I can get here Friday. Now, if we're during my working days, there's no way I'd get here. In fact, I might have trouble on Monday, and I'd be getting the packet as I'm walking in the door 5 minutes before the meeting. So I understand all that, and some of us can, some of us can't. But, and I think I speak for everyone here, and I know I was talking to Jimmy here. He even went by the lot to see where it was at. We want to be prepared when we come in here. Otherwise, take your Monday night off and do something. But the Bulls are playing tonight. If you're a Bulls fan, you can watch them play the Celtics. Great game. But, I'd like to be more prepared, and I think I speak for the whole staff here.
I think we should allow staff to discuss the
That's exactly what I
preparation
was
of the
gonna say.
packet and the delivery. And I know they'll take your remarks to heart, and we'll do what they can to address that comment.
Okay. Next thing is there more information that you might be able to provide us in your recommendation? Now, do the aldermen know more than we do about each situation? I don't know. I would think they might. They have constituents in their wards, maybe talking to them. We come in here, we're not really aware of a lot of this stuff. But maybe they know more, maybe they don't. But if there's any additional information that you can provide, and I don't know what that is, when you're putting it together, put it in there. Give us as much information on what's going on as possible. I didn't know a whole lot of what was going on when the UDO was being put through, but found out later that the city spent a lot of money on this. I guess I would like to know that and I would also like to have known maybe a little more of the background of the two consultants that were involved. I won't make a comment on the consultants. I would, but I won't. But my point is that I would like to have known maybe a little more about their background. That's the type of person I am. I don't believe in everything I hear or read.
So I am new to
Yeah.
the city. My understanding is there's been a typical process of information that's provided to the commission. We do try to provide everything that is under your purview for consideration. For example, you can ask us what the amount would have been paid for the contract. That isn't something that's up for a recommendation or review by the CDC, and therefore it wouldn't have come to you. But of course, it's public information if the city council has entered into a contract, and we can share that with you. But when it comes to projects or information, our senior planner does a great job pulling together all the information. She distributes it out to a bunch of reviewers, gets all that information back, and then puts it together with all the relevant pieces for you to see. Now, if there's something that that you're thinking of that you would like us to, either ask for or include in a future packet, let us know, and we're happy to discuss it.
Yeah, well, I think the main thing is if there's something you think there's more, and you probably do, and I'm not saying that you're not doing these things, Tracy, or Stacy, but, if you can give us a little more information, certainly would not hurt. At least it would help me. Now,
If
I
I
think-
might also just say, if anyone after you get the packet has any questions, we encourage you to reach out to the staff and ask those questions. First of all, it helps us be prepared if you want to ask them at the meeting, because a lot of times the questions that you ask or might have are questions that the audience or the public might have, but also that require a little bit of research for us to do, and it would take some time. So if you ask it at the meeting, which is completely fine, we may not have all the information available to us to answer those questions. So we would really encourage you to give us a call if you have any questions in advance.
Now, I think one of the key things is that the reason why we have voted one way and the council has voted the other way is that there are certain issues that we start getting, I don't want to use hung up on, because they're not hung up on, things that we feel are important. And I think that's one of the things that is happening. And I spoke to some people outside this room about my concern of why we're going the opposite way of the council on some of these key matters. I'll give you an example. In the last meeting, I voted against it, the landmark, because of trees. Stupid on my part. When I thought about it later, I said, what the hell did you do? The developer was going to give 20 trees. I went after him for 35. And we had he said that 20 was a give, and I said 35 is also a give, and went back for it. The final result came out that Alderman Art Woods got 40 trees. So I hope I softened up the developer for him on that. But my point is that if we could have in our decisions, and maybe we need to do this when we have an opportunity to speak amongst us, 'cause we normally don't, is to bring up some thoughts that we have, and then have those considerations be brought to the city council. In other words, I would have voted on the landmark, yes, because I think it's great for Wooddale, and eventually got passed, and I'm thankful that it did. As I said, I was stupid for what I did, how I voted. But, time, the moment, what's going on, it's you don't have time to sit for 5 minutes and think, how should I vote? So I think if we could have an opportunity to vote either yes or no with I use the word considerations. I don't know if there's another word you want to come up with, but have considerations as to how you would like to see the council do it. Because I think, I'm not on the city council. I haven't talked to anybody. They probably wouldn't give me an answer if I did anyway, and I know them all. But they got to think that we're a bunch of goofs over here sometimes, what we're doing. I hope not, but if I were sitting on the city council and on these three major considerations, we voted against them, I kind of like to think about who's on that CDC and what are they thinking. But that's for another day.
That's a great suggestion, and actually, we've been tossing around an idea to kind of address that.
Well, I know that,
Now,
and
of course, the city council gets the minutes, and they can also actually watch the meeting. So when they hear what the vote is, and they're kind of confused about what happened, they certainly can go and watch this meeting, so they can see and hear directly from you what your concerns were. But in order to formalize that more, we are working with our city attorneys on some sort of, like a form that we will include in your packet that will outline what the request is, and then what the recommendation is. And then there'll be an opportunity for individual CDC members to share your comments of specific things you would like the city council to consider when they look at it. And of course, that will be included in the city council's packet. So we're working on that, and we hope to bring that to you in January.
Well, that was my last point, is that I heard through the grapevine that something was being worked on or looked at from a legal standpoint, and I think that would make us a whole, I mean, what we should be doing is screening this stuff. I mean, the city council didn't go through that Ratcliffe thing. A lot of the aldermen were there, but I mean, that was a fiasco. You know, I won't comment anymore. But, so we take some of the heat, we take some of the information that they don't have access to unless they have, unless it's taped or something like that. But I think if we could come up with you know, something with our vote to say, why don't you look at this? I know that Commissioner Woods had talked a lot about the traffic study, and I noticed in the recommendation, it was just mentioned there was a traffic study. Well, who was it? You two guys stood on the corner and did the traffic study? You didn't. Okay. The point is, I mean facetious, but the point is, who did that traffic study, and what is their reputation? Those are the things that I personally look at. And, you know, I'm certain it was the right person and everything was done correctly, or, you know, it wouldn't go through the city manager or the attorneys. But I'd just like to know that, that's all. But if you can get something for us to provide a better vote, I think it'll be good for the city council, helpful to them, and I think it'll be good for the city of Wooddale. And I think the other thing is, you know, when we have a chance to talk amongst us before we make our vote, I think it makes sense to maybe we comment a little bit. If you notice, on the Asti thing, you know, I commented him on his business and thought it was great for, I mean, that was purposely done to kind of further some kind of conversation on those type of things. And I think, you know, these were kind of easy. The Ratcliffe, the UDO were very tough.
Unfortunately, those projects don't come along very often.
Yeah, we may never see, you know, this group may never see it again. But those of you that missed it, you missed something. Thank you. Anyone else want to comment on what I said, either for or against? If against, I'll challenge you, but if with it?
I'd like to comment. Let me start with us agreeing with the council. That's not our job to agree with the council. Our job is to find out everything we can, try to bring it up so that they can use that later on, and that might change the vote on it to do that.
Oh, I agree.
But that means we're doing our job.
Yeah. Well, yes and
And as
no.
far as getting back to Stacy's point here about getting a hold of people in the building department, if I get my packet at Friday at like 3 or 4 o'clock and I read it over that evening, who am I getting a hold of on Saturday or Sunday? You answering the phone, Goshen?
And I'm here on Monday morning.
That's
No,
all
that's a
I have
point.
to say.
That's a good point.
Okay, with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Roll call.
Mr. Vandelis,
Yes.
Ms. Rudnicki,
Yes.
Mr. Ferrenti,
Yes.
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
Mr. Woods,
Yes.
Chairman Ochoa.
Yes. The motion carries, the meeting's adjourned.